I never thought owning a snowplow would turn me into the villain of Riverside Heights. But here I was, sitting in my living room while 3 feet of fresh powder buried the entire neighborhood under a blanket of white chaos. My name is Jack Morrison, and I've lived here in this subdivision outside Rochester, New York for the past 8 years. When I moved here, the place seemed perfect. Nice houses, decent people, and best of all, I bought a corner lot with extra driveway space for my business equipment. I run a landscaping company, Morrison's Property Services, and during the winter months I pivot to snow removal. It's good money, keeps my crew employed year-round, and honestly, I enjoy the work. There's something satisfying about clearing a driveway and seeing the relief on a client's face when they realize they can actually get to work that morning. But the trouble started 3 months ago when the HOA got a new president. Her name was Patricia Hriss, and she was exactly what you'd picture when someone says HOA Karen. Mid-50s blonde, highlights that looked like they cost more than my monthly truck payment, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She moved into the neighborhood about 2 years ago and immediately started attending every single HOA meeting, taking notes and pointing out violations that nobody else seemed to care about. When the previous HOA president, a retired teacher named Mr. Chen, decided he'd had enough and stepped down, Patricia practically sprinted to fill the vacancy. The vote happened at a meeting that maybe 15 people attended out of the 200 homes in our subdivision. She won by 8 votes. Most people didn't even know there was an election happening. Her first act as president was to send out a newsletter. Not an email, mind you, but an actual printed newsletter that probably cost the HOA $300 to produce and mail. It was titled A New Era for Riverside Heights and contained about 4 pages of new rules she wanted to implement. Some of them were reasonable, like asking people to bring their trash cans in within 12 hours of pickup instead of leaving them on the curb for days. Others were ridiculous, like the suggestion that all houses should be painted in approved colors from a palette she personally selected. I mostly ignored it. I paid my HOA dues on time, kept my lawn maintained, and didn't cause problems. My work truck was usually parked in my driveway or out on jobs. During winter, I kept my plow truck on the street sometimes because my driveway wasn't quite long enough to accommodate both my personal vehicle and the truck with the plow blade attached. The truck stuck out maybe 2 feet past my property line, parked legally on the public street. Nobody had ever complained about it before. Then November rolled around and I got my first nasty letter from Patricia. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, printed on HOA letterhead that she apparently had made herself. The letter informed me that commercial vehicles were not permitted to be parked on the street overnight per HOA regulations, and I needed to remove my truck immediately or face fines. I read the letter 3 times, then pulled out my copy of the HOA bylaws. I had gotten them when I bought the house, and they were sitting in a filing cabinet in my home office. I spent an hour going through every page. There was absolutely nothing about commercial vehicles anywhere in the document. There was a section about abandoned vehicles and one about boats or RVs being stored on properties, but nothing about work trucks. I called Patricia's number, which was listed at the bottom of the letter. She answered on the 3rd ring with a voice that sounded like she was already irritated. "Patricia Hendress, HOA President," she said. "Hi, Patricia. This is Jack Morrison from 447 Maple Drive. I got your letter about my truck and I wanted to discuss it with you." "There's nothing to discuss, Mr. Morrison. The rules are clear. Actually, I just read through the entire HOA bylaws and there's no mention of commercial vehicles. Could you point me to the specific section you're referring to?" There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end and I imagined her face was turning red. "It's an aesthetic issue, Mr. Morrison. Your truck is an eyesore and several neighbors have complained." "Which neighbors? And if it's not in the bylaws, how can you enforce it?" "The HOA board has the authority to make reasonable rules for the betterment of the community. If you refuse to comply, we'll have no choice but to issue fines. I would like to see this in writing from the board, not just you. And I'd like to know who complained because I have a right to face my accusers at an HOA meeting." She hung up on me, just clicked off the call without another word. I sat there staring at my phone, shocked that an adult human being would act like that. A week later, I got another letter. This one stated that the HOA board had voted to create a new rule prohibiting commercial vehicles from being parked on neighborhood streets between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 o'clock a.m. The fine for violation was $100 per occurrence. The letter was signed by Patricia and 2 other board members I had never heard of. I did some digging and found out that the board consisted of Patricia, her friend Deborah Walsh, who lived 3 doors down from her, and a guy named Tim Porter, who was apparently Deborah's brother-in-law. The three of them had appointed themselves to the board after the previous members all resigned in frustration. According to the bylaws, board members were supposed to be elected at an annual meeting with a quorum of homeowners present. None of that had happened. I started parking my truck in front of my house around 7:45 p.m. every night and moving it by 8:01 a.m. every morning just to be petty. Patricia noticed, of course, and I got another letter saying that I was violating the spirit of the rule. I ignored it. December came, and with it the snow. Rochester winters are no joke. We regularly get buried under feet of snow, and the city has an entire fleet of plows working around the clock during big storms. Our subdivision, being a private community, was responsible for its own snow removal on the internal streets. The HOA had always contracted with a local company to handle it, paying them out of our dues. Here's where things got interesting. I ran into Tim Porter at the gas station one morning in early December. He looked exhausted, and when I asked him what was wrong, he told me that Patricia had fired the snow removal company to cut costs and had decided to let nature take its course with the snow this year. What does that even mean? I asked him. I have no idea, man. She said people have subs and they can handle a little snow. I tried to tell her that's insane, but she doesn't listen to anyone. I went home and checked the HOA budget, which was supposed to be shared with all homeowners annually. Sure enough, Patricia had cut the snow removal line item completely, saving about $12,000. She had reallocated that money to beautification projects, which apparently meant new signs at the subdivision entrance with her name on them as HOA president. The first real snow came on December 18th. We got about 8 inches overnight, and by morning the subdivision streets were a mess. I got up early, fired up my plow truck, and headed out to handle my contracted clients. As I was leaving, I noticed several neighbors trying to dig their cars out, spinning tires, and generally struggling. The main road through the subdivision hadn't been touched. I felt bad. These were my neighbors, people I'd known for years. So after I finished my paying jobs, I came back around 2:00 p.m. and spent 2 hours plowing the main roads in our subdivision. I didn't charge anything, just did it to be helpful. I cleared Maple Drive, Oak Street, and the main loop road. People waved at me, gave me thumbs up, and a few even came out to thank me. That evening I got a phone call from Patricia. Mr. Morrison, I need you to stop plowing the subdivision streets immediately. Excuse me. You are performing unauthorized work on HOA property. You do not have a contract with us, and you are creating a liability issue. Patricia, I was helping people. The roads were dangerous. That is not your decision to make. The HOA will handle snow removal as we see fit. You fired the snow removal company. Nobody's handling it. That is none of your concern. If you continue to plow without authorization, I will have your truck towed for being illegally parked on HOA property. I almost laughed. The streets are public roads, Patricia. The HOA doesn't own them. We have an easement and maintenance responsibility. Do not test me on this, Mr. Morrison. She hung up again. 2 days later, we got another storm. This one dropped 14 inches. I went out and did my client jobs again, but this time I didn't touch the subdivision roads. If Patricia wanted to play games, I'd let her. The roads became almost impassable. People were getting stuck, having to push each other out and walking to the main highway to catch rides to work because they couldn't get their cars out. My phone started ringing. Neighbors asking if I could plow their streets. I explained the situation with Patricia, and every single person was furious with her. A few of them said they were going to call her and complain. Apparently they did, because on December 22nd, I got a certified letter from Patricia. This one was typed up like a legal document and stated that my truck was banned from parking on any subdivision streets at any time due to repeated violations of HOA regulations and refusal to comply with board directives. It said if my truck was spotted on subdivision property, it would be towed at my expense and I would be fined $500 per occurrence. The letter also stated that I was not permitted to perform any commercial activities within the subdivision, including snow removal, and doing so would result in immediate legal action against me. I called my lawyer, a guy named Robert Chin, who had handled my business incorporation. He read the letter and actually laughed. Jack, this is not legally enforceable. They cannot ban you from parking on a public street, and they definitely cannot stop you from operating a business out of your home unless the zoning laws prohibit it, which they do not. This is just harassment. So what do I do? You could ignore it, or you could show up at the next HOA meeting and challenge her publicly. Get the other homeowners involved. She sounds like she is on a power trip, and the only way to deal with that is to remove her from power. I decided to go to the next HOA meeting, which was scheduled for January 8th. Christmas came and went, and we got absolutely slammed with snow. A huge winter storm rolled through on December 28th and dropped 26 inches over 2 days. It was the kind of storm that makes the national news. I was working 70-hour shifts with my crew plowing out businesses, hospitals, and residential clients. We were exhausted but making great money. The subdivision was a disaster. The roads were completely impassable. People were literally snowed in, unable to leave their homes. I watched from my front window as neighbors tried to dig out only to get their cars stuck in the middle of the unplowed streets. One elderly couple, the Johnsons from 3 houses down, got their car stuck and had to abandon it. Mr. Johnson was in his 70s and had a bad hip. Watching him struggle through waist-deep snow to get back to his house made my blood boil. I called Patricia. She did not answer, so I left a message. "Patricia, this is Jack Morrison. The subdivision is in a state of emergency. People cannot get out. I am offering to plow the roads for free, no charge to the HOA, just to help our neighbors. Please call me back." She never called back. Instead, I got a text message from a number I did not recognize. It said, "Remove your truck from subdivision streets or it will be towed. This is your final warning." I looked outside. My truck was parked in my driveway. It hadn't been on the street in days. I responded, "Who is this?" The reply came back, "HOA board. We are monitoring your property." That creeped me out. I went outside and looked around. I didn't see anyone, but the idea that Patricia or her cronies were watching my house felt like stalking. On December 30th, Mr. Johnson had a medical emergency. His wife called 911, but the ambulance couldn't get into the subdivision because the roads were blocked with snow. They had to send a fire department rescue vehicle with tracks, and even that took 45 minutes to arrive instead of the usual 10. Mr. Johnson ended up being okay. He had a minor heart attack, but the delay could have killed him. That night, I decided I was done playing nice. I hooked up my plow truck, drove to the entrance of the subdivision, and started clearing the main roads. I worked for 5 straight hours, clearing every street, pushing snow into the designated areas, and making sure every single home had access to get out. When I was finished, it was 3 a.m., and I was exhausted, but the roads were clear. The next morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I stumbled downstairs in my pajamas and opened it to find Patricia standing there with a tow truck behind her and 2 guys in reflective vests standing next to my plow truck. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. "I told you your truck was banned from subdivision property. I am having it towed. It's in my driveway on my property. The plow blade is extending over the sidewalk, which is HOA property. That's a violation." I looked at my truck. The blade was angled and maybe 6 inches of it was over the sidewalk. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. "You are insane. Get off my property." "I am enforcing HOA rules, Mr. Morrison. You've been warned repeatedly." One of the tow truck guys looked uncomfortable. "Madam, I don't think we can legally tow this. It's on his property." Patricia whirled on him. "I'm paying you to do a job. Do it." The guy shook his head. "No, madam. I'm not getting involved in a property dispute. You need to figure this out yourselves." He and his partner got back in their truck and drove away. Patricia's face was bright red. She turned back to me, her voice shaking with anger. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Plowing the roads without authorization, ignoring my directives. You're creating a liability for this HOA, and I won't tolerate it." "Patricia, I helped people. Families were trapped. Mr. Johnson nearly died because the ambulance couldn't get in. That's not my problem. People chose to live here, and they need to be prepared for winter weather. You are supposed to provide snow removal. It's what people pay their HOA dues for. I manage the budget as I see fit. If people don't like it, they can move." A few neighbors had come out of their houses to watch the confrontation. One of them, a woman named Sarah Martinez, who lived across the street, walked over. "Patricia, what's wrong with you? Jack helped us. We couldn't get out of here." "Stay out of this, Sarah. This is between me and Mr. Morrison." "No, it's not. This affects all of us. You cut the snow removal service, and now you're harassing the one person who actually helped us." More neighbors started gathering. I could see people on their porches watching. Patricia looked around and seemed to realize she was outnumbered. "There will be consequences for this," she said, pointing at me. Then she turned and walked back to her car, which was parked on the street. That afternoon, I got another certified letter. This one stated that I was being fined $2,000 for unauthorized commercial activity on HOA property, and that if I didn't pay within 30 days, the HOA would place a lien on my house. I called Robert Chen again. He told me to bring all the letters and documentation to his office. When I showed him everything, he shook his head in disbelief. "Jack, this woman is completely out of control. The good news is none of this is legally enforceable. The bad news is she can make your life miserable with paperwork and legal fees if you let her. What do you recommend? Go to the HOA meeting. Bring all of this documentation. Bring neighbors who support you. Challenge her authority and call for a vote to remove her from the board. If enough homeowners show up, you can take control of the HOA back from her. I spent the next week talking to neighbors. I knocked on doors, made phone calls, and sent emails. I explained what Patricia had done, showed people the letters, and told them about the HOA meeting on January 8th. Almost everyone I talked to was furious with her. Many of them had their own stories of harassment and ridiculous demands from Patricia. Sarah Martinez told me that Patricia had fined her $300 for having a wreath on her front door that wasn't in keeping with the aesthetic standards of the community. Another neighbor, Dave Richardson, said Patricia had tried to make him cut down a tree in his yard because she didn't like the way it looked. The tree was healthy and beautiful, and Dave had refused. Patricia then sent him a letter threatening to have it removed at his expense. The more I talked to people, the more I realized that Patricia had been terrorizing the entire neighborhood. She had just picked on me more because I stood up to her. January 8th arrived, and it was another snowy day. We had gotten 6 more inches overnight, and the subdivision roads were a mess again. I had not plowed them since the last time, sticking to my decision to let Patricia handle it. People were struggling again, but this time everyone knew why. The HOA meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. at the community clubhouse, a small building near the subdivision entrance that was used for events and meetings. I arrived at 6:45 and was shocked to see the parking lot was already full. People were parking on the street and walking in. Robert Chen met me at the entrance. "Looks like you got a good turnout," he said. "I'm nervous as hell." "Don't be. Just tell the truth and let the homeowners decide." We walked in together. The main room was set up with rows of chairs facing a small table at the front where Patricia, Deborah, and Tim were sitting. Every single seat was filled and people were standing along the walls. I estimated there were at least 100 people there, maybe more. It was by far the largest turnout for an HOA meeting in the history of Riverside Heights. Patricia looked shocked when she saw the crowd. She had a stack of papers in front of her and a gavel, which seemed absurd for an HOA meeting. She banged it on the table. "This meeting will come to order. We have several items on the agenda tonight.